Ashley Johnson, and I will be talking to you all about PTSD. PTSD is commonly found as an anxiety disorder that affects those who have been fighting in combat. PTSD, commonly known as post-traumatic stress disorder, affects many people that have been in war. And in this diagram, you'll see that 2.2 of the United States population is affected by it, so approximately 7.7 million people. And of that, 300,000 military veterans are affected by it. And the bottom part just shows you that it begins with either, for this case, an assault or an attack, a terrorist attack, combat, or the death of a loved one or a combat partner. PTSD is quickly attacking our servicemen and women every day, and it's important to inform others on ways to identify and support those affected. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be a soldier on a battlefield, dressed from head to toe in camouflage, strapped with a weapon of imaginable power? Well, many soldiers are able to experience this, and more often than not, they return home differently than how they left. Today, many soldiers suffer from PTSD. The National Institute of Mental Health describes PTSD as an anxiety disorder that some people get after living or seeing a traumatic event. I would like you all to be informed about ways to identify PTSD in veterans so that they are able to live peacefully after their life at war. First, I'll begin by telling you the main causes of PTSD. Before diagnosing PTSD, the Department of Veteran Affairs goes to ask these three questions. Have you experienced trauma? Have you experienced a disaster? Or have you been in combat? And more often than not, all three questions are answered with a yes, because the military men and women have been in war. The National Institute of Mental Health describes many causes of PTSD, and those range from dangerous events, seeing someone get hurt or getting hurt, seeing the sight of blood, and just having extreme fear can have a dramatic effect on their lives. After reading Returning Home to Another War, Dr. Gu, the author, declared that killing each other is not a fundamental part of human nature. For the most part, it's against our nature. Regardless of military branch, every soldier is required and trained to kill. Each is willing to kill, at least, and perhaps, and able to die for an idea, a code, or a perception of a noble cause. Now that I've told you about the main causes of PTSD, I will now begin discussing the most common symptoms found among those that are affected with PTSD. While researching this topic, I found that there are many symptoms that are related to PTSD, and some of the general symptoms include depression, suicidal thoughts, lack of concentration, lack of sleep, inability to stay asleep, and isolation problems or drug and alcohol abuse. Tracy Stecker, the writer of Personal Stories, wrote that individuals with PTSD often experience three types of symptoms. And those symptoms include re-experiencing symptoms, avoidance symptoms, and hyperarousal symptoms. Re-experiencing symptoms is shown in nightmares. Many combat veterans often have flashbacks while they're sleeping of the traumatic event that they witnessed, and that'll trigger their PTSD. The avoidance symptoms, they might attempt to suppress their memories by drug and alcohol abuse, which is ultimately extremely unhealthy for the veteran, or the hyperarousal symptoms, and that can be shown through their violent impulse as a reaction to loud noises, sudden movements, and just startling events as such. And just to go back over the symptoms: depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, lack of concentration, alcohol and drug abuse. Lastly, I would like to show you ways that you can support those affected with PTSD, and the four main ways: love, service, and service as in community groups. When these vets come home, they're not always approached with the proper environment that they need. Many of them aren't able to fully jump back into the natural lifestyle that they had before they went to war. So it's important that people reach out to them. They need community groups, family services, peer support groups, or even employee assistance programs in order to be successful. They need to know that they are capable. They don't appreciate, well, they not necessarily appreciate, but they need to be, they need to talk to someone. If they're able to talk and express their thoughts with someone, then that'll even make their life more memorable and safe at home. The author of Understanding and Treating Depression, Nedger, wrote that psychological support from friends, family, and health providers is necessary because the lack will result in negative correlation that exists between the social class and mental illness. If the social class is able to be made aware of this disorder, then the transition back home for these war veterans will be peaceful. Wieselman, the author of When the War Never Ends, wrote, "Support from my family has led to some improvement. The best support I can give is helping me to not feel guilty about how I've changed." So it's important that they're not constantly reminded of these thoughts. So journal keeping is a good method to go to. If they write their thoughts down, then they can eventually overcome them. And then if they have a mentor or something, the mentor can go over and see how they've progressed by writing down their ideas and thoughts. Overall, there are many ways to make their life more peaceful and safe as they return home from war. It has an imaginable effect on these veterans, and I believe it's important to inform everyone about ways to make this disorder easy for these veterans and how to make it simpler to care for.